Today we are talking about being financially avoidant. You might have a friend who is not into finance, spends a lot. You might even not look at your accounts, kind of avoid finances when you can. You might think that budgeting will make you basically be locked in spending prison and you can't buy the things that you want. Not everybody is obsessed with finances, understandably. Some people are ridiculous, overly obsessed, maybe should make a video about being a little too keyed in or maybe cheap or overly optimized. Let's say that, let's keep it positive. But a lot of people avoid finances. They don't want to see it. They don't want to check their accounts. They want to make sure their bills are paid, sure. But above that, we're not doing much more. I wasn't necessarily afraid of finances. I definitely in medical school, since it was all monopoly money, took out a bunch of loans, didn't really think about my spending too much, but I would avoid looking at my checking account. Didn't really want to see if it was really low because that makes me nervous just generally. But I think that for me, as I've done 1,000 shopping videos, not 1,000, I only have like 27 videos, but as I've done a lot of shopping videos, because I could talk about forever, right? I could talk about that I was somebody who just mindlessly shopped. It was just a hobby. Didn't know it was a hobby, but it was just something you did. It's Saturday, let's go to the stores, let's go just see what's out there. It was listening to a podcast about a physician couple who paid off over $600,000 worth of student loans that made me think there's another way to do things. That's insane. I had no idea. I had no idea that there was people who paid off their loans. In medicine, I think the norm is to not pay off your loans. Hopefully, if you work in a public institution, you're going for public service loan forgiveness. But if you work in the private office like I do, you're not eligible for that. And so a lot of people will just have their loans until you're 50s, 60s, whatever it is, depending on the loan type. And that is the norm. So loans are like pets. They're gonna keep them as long as possible. But hearing that there was another way made me fall down the rabbit hole. I went very hardcore, full Dave Ramsey, and wanted to spend as little money as possible, optimize, pay off my loans as quickly as possible. And in that, I discovered so many things about interest. You know, I never really thought about it. It was just like, pay that minimum, pay what you owe, and that's all you do. It was talking to a friend recently that made me want to just go in and what could I do to be almost like that podcast was for me? What could I do to make people want to get into finances, or at least just be a little more interested, a little more optimized, to make them really want to prepare for future them? And of course, the earlier you do this, the better. I'm happy that I was at least in residency. I wasn't making an attending salary at the time, that I didn't know what I was doing with my money. But to catch somebody even earlier, of course, in your 20s, if you're watching these kind of things, you're amazing. 30s, of course, you're amazing too. But it's never too late to get comfortable with your finances, to feel that you can handle money and that you just feel prepared for any financial eventuality. It only takes a little bit of time and savings to get to a place where you can feel safe. And I want people to know that often we're avoiding things because we think it's just too hard. We think we're too far behind. Our loan burden is way too much and we can't really get there, especially if we're later in life. But the later you are, the more ground you have to make up.
How do you feel about your student loan?
Indifferent. I don't think there's any hope of paying it off before I die. So I just am not making a very concerted effort.
You have $180,000.
Yeah, but what am I supposed to do about that? I only make $67,000 a year.
I'm not talking about solutions. I'm talking about how do you feel about that debt?
I do feel indifferent because I have no interest in really making any effort to pay my student loan. I will pay the monthly payment, but I'm not going to make extra payments when it's never going to get paid off.
And Thad, how do you feel about your $120,000 loan in a word or two?
Shameful and overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's more common.
I mean, I get that, but what am I supposed to do? I mean, it's been around for 25 years. It's not getting paid. So I'm doing my best, but I have other debt that I can actually pay off and make like a difference in my life. Mm-hmm. The student loan, But
it's something that we talk about a lot. We feel overwhelmed. We're not going to be able to pay it. It's a constant hindrance in our lives. It's the reason why we can't get ahead. That's the kind of narrative that the student loans play in our conversation.
Hey guys, it's Editing Chrissy. I thought the video clip was illustrative of the problems with student loan debt. Even if you don't plan to pay it off, it's just something that kind of lives rent-free in your head. And I love that clip. And of course, I found it after I made this video, but I thought it was just such a good clip to put in there. Anyway, back to the video. I just want to make a video that hopefully wakes somebody else up the way I was awakened by the podcast I heard in 2018. I talked to my friend recently just to see if there's something I can do to jog her, to get her a little more interested in finances. In her case, and I think a lot of people's case, you can just feel so far behind. She has over $600,000 worth of mortgage. She recently bought a very, very nice house. My house is like a little baby compared to her beautiful house. And she also has, I think, over 500, maybe, I can't believe it's over $500,000, but definitely over $400,000 worth of student loans from medical school, which if she is in certain plans can be discharged after 20 to 25 years, depending on it. But when I ask her about her interest rates, she's unsure. She knows that there's different loans. You know, you can have like 6+ loans when you have medical student debt. My friend did not know really the range of interest rates that she has. And so that makes me wonder, do we know what income-driven repayment plan we're in so that we know her loans will be discharged after 20 to 25 years? Anyway, my friend owes student loans that might be discharged, and she has a mortgage. It's a big mortgage. And this video is not to like, you know, get to rice and beans, beans and rice, sell that house, sell your beautiful car. She's a great luxury vehicle. None of that is my advice. This video is just suggest little things to get my friend past Chrissy, anybody listening who just feels financially avoidant, just little things you can do or should do to get future you a little closer to feeling okay with finances and feeling more supported. First thing I'd say is to get the money you're owed. In the case of my friend, there are certain things in medicine that you can get reimbursed for. So the most present on my mind is CME money, so continuing medical education money. I've talked about this before in another video briefly, but basically if you're buying something that you need or want for your practice, so it could be a cell phone, it could be your scrubs, it could be going to a conference, like we all just got back from the AP conference in Denver, which was amazing. These are different things that you keep your receipts from, and if you bought food from the conference, if you went to the conference and paid for your flight, paid for your hotel, you'll be reimbursed. It depends on where you work, how much you'll get for CME funds, but you're getting usually at least $1,000 at whatever clinic you work for. And my friend, who has been in practice for a little while, has never gotten reimbursed for anything she's bought. And this girl has like really cute scrubs. We've gone to conferences together and she's never being reimbursed. So get the money that you're due. That's important. The other thing is if you're driving between different locations that are owned by your clinic, you can be reimbursed for your miles on your car, right? She's never submitted for that. And if you think about your own industry, you're not in medicine, but there are things that you are likely able, whether it's mileage or something else, that you can be reimbursed for. Make sure you're getting the money you're due. The most common thing you'll hear from people who are on YouTube doing things is, of course, get the match with your 401k or 403b. That's your money. That's free money. Of course, not everybody can fully fund their 401k. It took me a long time to get there, but it was definitely one of my goals for a long time. So the first few years where I was paying off loans, I had 1,000 different things I needed to spend money on and not enough money to do it. It wasn't always that I was able to fully fund my 401k. So to my point of getting the money that you're owed, it is important to just get the match on your 401k, 403b. That might be the only thing that your company offers that is almost like a reimbursement or just like your money, free money. This is what you need to do. If there are things that your company reimburses, whether you get a per diem for lunch because you have to stay on site, whatever it is, just make sure you are submitting those receipts and getting the money from that. The next thing is to have an emergency fund. My friend in question, the one that I'm basing this video around, has an emergency fund. However, her emergency fund is in a brick and mortar, I want to say Wachovia. Wow, I'm old. Like a Wells Fargo, Bank of America, that kind of bank where the money that is sitting in her account is actually losing money. I mean, all of us who have our money in our checking account or whatever, the APY, the money in your favor or the interest in your favor is nil. So you're actually losing money the longer it sits there. That's where her emergency fund is. I'm not sure if she knows how many months she has of emergency. So if anybody lost their job, do we have at least 3 months of funds available? I would encourage her to put that money into a high yield account. So one of these online banks, I sent her my link for Wealthfront because that's where my high yield savings account is, but Ally, any of these places, Goldman Sachs, wherever you want your money, the interest rate just went down. The Fed lowered the interest rates. Right now, I think Wealthfront is offering 3.75. Don't go chasing, just find one that you like and stay there. But I think it is important to not only have an emergency fund, but have that emergency fund in your high yield savings account. My friend would just need to start start dropping those funds when she gets reimbursed for CME, when she gets reimbursed from her miles. She could start putting those funds in the new high yield savings account that she opens somewhere. I like to think about the amount that you have in your high yield savings account as calculations in math plus feelings. So for me, 3 months of my expenses is not going to be enough to make me feel comfortable. I calculated my average spending for the months like January to September, and I spend approximately $4,200 a month. So for me, a 3-month emergency fund would be like what, $12,000 something dollars. That's not making me feel comfortable, right? That might make me feel comfortable for my checking account because I like a high checking account balance, but as far as an emergency fund, I'm trying to get a year. So if I spend $4,200 a month, I'm trying to have an emergency fund that's at least $50,000. You know, I have a house, I have things that break all the time. I just got that toilet fixed. So that's the feeling part. There's a math that's like, just take the amount that you spend every month that you're going to figure out by, I don't know, like calculating what you spend in a week, multiply it by 4 to get a month, and then multiplying by whatever number makes you feel comfortable. I think getting to a 6-month emergency fund is great. I think that's, especially if you're paying off debt and other things, getting a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, I think is kind of a minimal do. But if you want that feeling of comfort, if any emergency comes up, you can probably handle it. That 12-month feels good. So yeah, so mine with that $4,200, it would be closer to $50,000 that I'm looking at just for emergencies. And then since all of my funds, I just put them all, it's divvied out in my spreadsheet, like different categories of things that I'm saving for. But for strict emergency, I would have at least $50,000. And then I have like a little car fund. I know a lot of people have sinking funds and they have different little accounts as sub accounts in their big bank. For me, that's just a little too much money in different locations. So I like to just have it all divvied out on my spreadsheet, but it's all just in one pot of money. So in essence, at some point, I will probably have closer to almost like $70,000 in that high yield savings account because I will have money. So if I need to buy a car, which I shouldn't, I should be able to drive my Camry forever. But if I want to be able to buy a car and those kind of things that come up in the future, I will have all of that money in one pot in my emergency fund, as long as it's under the $100,000 or whatever the FDIC will insure. In the case where my emergency fund gets over that amount that the FDIC insures, I will make a new little pot of money at some other bank. For now, I like the very simplified version. The only different accounts that I want are my retirement accounts, okay? So that's number 2, would be just make sure you have your emergency fund that makes you feel comfortable, but it's calculated from your spending so that you actually know how much you need in order to be secure for 3, 6, 12 months if you have to look for a job or everything in your house breaks in that time, okay? The third thing that I would say is to go back to the debt. You should know what you owe, right? Even if it's something that you think you're going to have forgiven in the future, if you're a physician, teacher, anything where you're working for a public institution and you might get public service loan forgiveness, PSLF, you should know about your loans because you have to make sure you're making those on-time payments every month so that you're eligible, and you don't want to miss them because you don't want to be ineligible if you want your loans to be forgiven, right? So even if you're doing that kind of program, you should be on top of it. If you're having your loans discharged because of time, maybe have a fund because there will be taxes that will be due when that loan is discharged. If it's not public service loan forgiveness, you're going to owe a lot of money at the end of that period. And so you want to know exactly how much you're going to owe. You're going on to, I think it's Fed loan, and you're just seeing all your loans, you're seeing all your interest rates. And if some of those are super high, because in the case of my friend, she's working at a private clinic, she's not eligible for public service loan forgiveness. So it could be that it would be advantageous for her to refinance with one of these private loan carriers and then get a lower interest rate. So just knowing what you owe, knowing what the interest rate is, and then being able to optimize will be a good thing. There's just so many people who can help you, free or paid, figure out your loan situation. But it's so important for you to know where your loans are, know your password, know how to just get in and see them so that you can have that information. And I know that before I became interested in this, I had to figure out where I could see my loans. So yes, I would encourage my friend and yours and you to make sure you understand how much you owe, where you can see your loans, what the interest is, and the plan for paying them off, if there is one. I would also say that any debt with an interest rate of 6.5 to 7, those are debts that I think you should work on paying off just because that is a guaranteed 7%. Often we say 7% as our conservative stock market return, and you can get this rate by paying off your own loans and not having interest accrue at 7%. It might be a good thing to pay off. So that's another reason you should know your interest rates. And then just to piggyback onto number 2, for those of you with consumer debt or high interest debt, and you're working on paying them off, your emergency fund might be a little smaller. You know, Dave Ramsey would say what did he say, like save $1,000, which is not even probably for most people a month worth of emergency fund. But I would say getting 3 months of emergency fund and paying off that high interest debt is important. Number 4, my friend in question, contributing the max to the 401k. I would hope that we're doing even more, right? So if we think about saving at least 20% of our gross income, let's take a guess. Let's say that her, or like the average income of a pediatrician in this area is $180,000. And that's actually higher than in my area, the average income of a pediatrician. But let's say it's $180,000. If she is just filling her 401k for 2025, then she's saving 13.5%. And that's great, but it's not the 20% that I think that we should at least get to, if not more. If we are just saving in our 401k and doing that, 13.5%-ish, then I want her to know about other opportunities, pre-tax opportunities, be like a health savings account. And then the Roth IRA would be after tax, but still, if we're thinking about 20% of $180,000, we're thinking more like $36,000 that we're trying to save. And if we're only saving into our 401k, we're doing great, and it's great that we're doing something for future person and we're doing something great for our future selves. But consider learning about health savings accounts, consider learning about Roth IRAs or other ways to get to that 20% and have it be tax efficient. And man, I just keep wanting to optimize. And this is supposed to be the simple things, but still, there are different accounts. Just know that there are places where your money can go and help you later. The next one, number 5, you know how I love to talk about spending and shopping and all the things, because me in the past, literally, it was not a thought. I was just shopping because that was something you do on Saturday. I was shopping because there's always something out there that I didn't know I need. For my people who are shoppers, I want you to just keep blindly doing what you've always done. I want you to know that those little knickknacks, those home goods, all these things, they do count. The $7 Starbucks, it counts. I know that everybody feels like they need something as soon as they leave the house, but it all matters. My point is to really understand how much you're spending, and that would be to not just look back at your credit cards. It's very important to look back on how much you spend, especially for point number 2, where you're trying to figure out how much you need in an emergency fund. But for number 5, about your current spending, I want you to write down, pen and paper. If your handwriting is bad like mine, you might be doing it on your phone, but you are writing down every expenditure for a week. I would just say for a week. You're writing down or typing out that you spent $50 on Saturday, October 4th at Costco, and then what you buying leggings times 3, whatever it is. So that after that week, on Sunday, you can go through your list of things that you bought and really see where your money's going. How much of these were things that you liked and you would do again? And how many things on the list were things that you are just like not convinced you really needed? Calculate those too. Know how much you are spending that seemed like a mistake, so that you can really consider or you can divert that money somewhere else by not going to a certain store every Saturday and checking things out. I would also say in that situation with the shopping, in the case of my friend who bought this amazing house and has many rooms to fill, part of maybe every weekend or during the week on a day off might be going to Home Goods and checking things out. We need some decor. We need to get certain things for the place. If we're going every Saturday, could we limit it to every other Saturday? Could we limit it to once a month? Just to get out of the habit of having that be something, a weekend activity, trying to fill the house. Try to limit going to those stores to one day, again, every other week. I think that's a good way to put some brakes on and see how often you go and how many money spending opportunities you give yourself every month. Put a little break on that. Keep in mind the next one, number 6. Number 6, we'll say, keep in mind the big 3 expenses, which are housing, transportation, and food. Always food, right? There's so many food opportunities right outside your house, and you got to get your groceries because grocery shopping is kind of fun for some people I know. For me, definitely. Keep in mind that those are the big 3. And if you can keep those categories down as much as possible, you're going to be living pretty well. And again, in the case of my friend, who most of these categories, maybe not food as much, but housing, definitely. She has a nice, big, beautiful house that is expensive, and transportation, she has a nice luxury vehicle. They're kind of high. She's dealing with it. I'm not telling anybody to go out and sell everything. If they're in a place where they can afford payments and still save and they're living their lives and they're happy, keep going. That's completely fine. You can afford your lifestyle, so you're still saving and you're not just spending exactly what comes in. Just keep in mind that these are areas where if you're young, getting that roommate and you're not used to living alone in a lot of space, keep yourself to that place where you're okay with a roommate. All of these things, trying to shop at Aldi or whatever store around you is cheapest, and living close to work, having a car that you don't have a car payment on. It's something that makes me feel really good, because having a car that you're paying for monthly is very American, and it feels just normal, just like shopping every day feels normal too. Not having a car payment and just buying a used car that you know the Carfax on or whatever from a brand that you know is reliable. Limiting the amount of things in your life that are fixed payments is always a good thing. Know that if you can optimize these 3 categories, you're going to be doing well. The last thing is, if you are so inclined, there's some books that I read early in 2018, early in my financial awakening, that I think are really helpful. So I have my crossed out list of things. I have the list of things that I read that I'll put up somewhere, but it's not going to be that easy for you to see. But I read a lot of books when I was starting out, to the detriment of my studies probably, but I read a lot of books just about finances, and then others of just like optimize. I wanted to just be better at everything in general. So a few books I would recommend: The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. We're not going full Ramsey, but I think it's important to read his book just because it really does break things down in a way that you see, oh my gosh, I could be so much more optimized. This debt is probably weighing me down a bit. There are ways out of this. Many people have done it, and seeing those stories can be so enlightening and helpful, because a lot of us, when you look at anything on the internet, you're kind of comparing yourself and you're like, if this person can do it, I can do it. I wouldn't listen too much about the credit cards necessarily if you can pay them off and not carry a balance. But just in general, the first, 4 baby steps or whatever it is, are really helpful, I think. The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach is another book that I read pretty early. He's the one who you can get mad at for taking away your lattes. Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin and somebody else. I don't remember his name, but they wrote a book that kind of breaks things down in a way that makes you consider every purchase. Broke Millennial by Aaron Lowry, just a fun read, and it teaches you the financial basics. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, really just about optimizing things, how your actions can either progress you in a good way or like regress you. What roads you take, the actions you take can improve or hold you back. The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, similar to the Compound Effect, edging you to be 1% better, and optimizing a little bit will help you a lot. And then lastly, it wouldn't be a financial video without mentioning Ramit Sethi, who wrote I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And this is, again, basics of finance, but you're really learning stepwise what to do this action, and then come back and read the next chapter. I think all of these books, the books that I read in 2018, were really helpful. Sometimes it's important to hear the same thing in different ways from different people to really get it into your brain. So there are so many more. If you really want to go down the rabbit hole and get really interested in finances, I would love to talk books. So if you've read other financial books, just life improvement books, drop them in the comments for other people to look at. And, watch one of my shopping videos. Watch this one. It's good. Have a good day.